Another nail in my coffin! It's your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is my series, Nails in the Coffin, where we learn that with great kills, there must also come great nails. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. Thanks for checking out my video, I appreciate it. If you are new here, please read what my Nails in the Coffin is all about in the section down below. Thanks. So, when this video goes out, we're just 3 days away from Christmas, and I hope everybody's having a wonderful holiday season, regardless of what you celebrate. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I hope you are all doing well. So, you've seen the title. I'm covering one of my favorite movies. This is actually the first non-horror film I've covered on my Nails in the Coffin series. I figure, why not cover the best Christmas movie there is, Die Hard. Now, I know there's a debate on whether or not Die Hard really is a Christmas movie. It's something that people are very passionate about. The way I look at it, if you think Die Hard's a Christmas movie, then it is. If you don't think Die Hard's a Christmas movie, then it's not. We don't have to agree on everything. This is all for fun, and I hope you enjoy this content. Again, if you are new here, I don't actually review the movies. I just analyze the kills, and I rate the victims' actions and decisions. So, sit back, relax, come out to the calls, we'll get together, have a few laughs, as we let the nailing begin. Our first set of kills occurs when Hans and his crew arrive at Nakatomi Plaza. Carl and Theo enter the lobby and they walk up to the security desk. The first guard sees the DO being dropped off and walking up. He thinks nothing out of the ordinary. Theo is talking about the game last night as a distraction. Carl's behind Theo, and when they get up to the desk, Carl draws his weapon and shoots the guard in the head. This unnamed guard gets the first set of nails, and I'm going to award him 2 nails in the coffin. He never knew what hit him, nor did he really have time to react. Theo and Carl did not look suspicious, and the guard was in an office building sitting behind a desk, pretty much just checking IDs. So, if a victim was given no chance of survival and they didn't have any opportunity to defend themselves, I go down the middle and give them 2 nails in the coffin. While Theo jumped on the computer, Carl goes around the corner to find the other security guard on duty. He has his gun out and he pulls out a flashbang device. The other guard is by the elevator and he sees his device roll over to him. It explodes, blinding him and disorientating him. Then Carl comes around the corner and shoots the guard in the chest. Just like the first guard, I'm going to give this guy 2 nails in a coffin. He was on duty waiting for the elevator. He saw something that looked like a hockey puck rolling towards him. And before he could do anything, it exploded with the flashbang. And then he was shot dead. So there's nothing he really could have done here. I didn't see him do anything wrong or stupid. So, again, I'm going to go down the middle and give him 2 nails in the coffin. Our next kill is Mr. Takagi, the president of Nakatomi Trading. But now Hans and his crew have taken over the building, and they have everyone at the Christmas party held hostage. Hans wants the codes to the vault, but Mr. Takagi says he wasn't given the codes, but Hans wants that $640 million in the Ghost and Bearer bonds that are hidden in the vault. Hans gives Mr. Takagi to the count of 3, and he slowly counts to 3. At 3, Mr. Takagi says, "Hey, I don't know the codes. I'm telling you, you're going to have to kill me." Well, Hans fulfills that request, and he shoots the businessman in the head. This one was a little harder to rate than I expected, but Mr. Takagi earned himself 2.5 nails in a coffin. He wasn't a stupid man, and he knew whether he gave the codes or not, Hans was going to kill him. And you can actually see him sweating while he was talking to Hans, so he knew the gravity of the situation. If he knew the codes and didn't give them, it was not because he didn't want to lose the money. He knew he was dead no matter what. So if he knew the codes and gave it to him, he would have been killed. So I think he just wanted to make it harder for the thieves. I mean, this scene may have played out differently if Hans was threatening one of the other employees, but I do feel like Mr. Takagi was a smart man and he deserves at least 2.5 nails in a coffin. John McClane was nearly caught by the terrorists after Mr. Takagi was killed. He's now up on higher floor and he pulls a fire alarm, hopefully to get someone to respond to the threat in the building. Hans and his group catch the alarm and they call the fire department saying it was just a false alarm. Hans then sends Tony up to go investigate the floor where the alarm was triggered. John hides as Tony is turning on the lights and looking around. John gets a drop on him and pulls a gun on Tony. They have a quick back and forth. John hits Tony with an elbow and they get into a fight. They have some back and forth and they go through all this drywall because the floor is under construction. Eventually their fight takes them to a stairwell where they both roll down this set of stairs, and the fall down the stairs actually resulted in Tony's broken neck. Tony was John's first victim of many, and he earned himself 2.5 nails in a coffin. Luckily for John, Tony broke his neck falling down the stairs. He was bigger and stronger than John, and during their short scuffle, all they did was throw each other in the drywall. John was on Tony's back, and Tony had a machine gun. He was just firing out in front of him. He had a free arm. He never tried to shoot up, at least in the direction of John. I know, shooting a weapon by your head, but I think Tony was kind of winning the fight, and John got lucky on this one, which is why I'm giving Tony that extra half a nail. John takes the detonators and machine gun from Tony and sends a nice message to Hans and his crew.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
John's breaking a window with the chair so he can get the attention of cops. Two of Hans's henchmen enter the room. First Marco, and John has his gun pointed at him, telling him to drop his gun and get on the floor. Heinrich shows up behind Marco, who then just drops to the floor, and this is when John opens fire, hitting Heinrich in the chest, killing him. Heinrich gets one nail in the coffin. He had a machine gun and pretty much just ran into gunfire. He had to have heard Marco and John yelling at each other, and there's also a window right there, and he should have seen John. He could have fired through the window, at least brought his gun up to the ready, but all he did was run into bullets, and that's stupid. And in my book of nails, not a book just yet, that's always going to get you at the most one nail in the coffin. Right after Heinrich was killed, Marco jumped up on a table and ran after John. John is crawling backwards under the table, and Marco's on top, walking across, shooting through the table in attempt to hit him. He gets to the end of the table and he reloads his machine gun, and he wastes some time taking a moment to talk some crap to John, saying he's run out of room, and this gives John the opportunity to fire through the table right into Marco's legs and groin, killing the guy. This idiot's also going to get one nail in the coffin. He was shooting through a table when he could see John crawling backwards under it. He never tried to shoot from the side when there was no obstacle in front of him. He knew John had a gun, but I guess he assumed John wouldn't shoot him. He stayed there to talk shit, saying John ran out of room. But so did you, and you're just standing there making yourself a stationary target. You could have jumped down and fired on the table at the same time. Even in a kill shot, it still would have been better than just standing there. So this is a one nail in the coffin kill any day of the week. By now, thanks to John, LAPD is on the scene, and they know of the terrorist activity in the building. They're following the LAPD textbook procedures, which Hans is fully aware of. James and Alexander have an RPG on one of the higher floors. SWAT arrives with their armored personnel carrier, and they drive up the steps. I guess they were going to go drive in the lobby, apparently, and they needed this vehicle to get through the glass doors. The armored vehicle gets stuck on the stairs since there was a railing there, so Jason and Alexander load up their RPG, fire into the SWAT vehicle, killing the two SWAT officers. I want to give both SWAT members 1.5 nails in a coffin apiece. I'm not sure if they were following orders, but going up the steps with the metal railing in the way was not the best option they had. I mean, they made themselves pretty much a sitting duck. I'm not sure what the plan was once they got into the lobby. I mean, earlier there were glass doors and they were using a blowtorch to cut through the lock on the doors, which made no sense. And I've said this in a lot of my videos, but law enforcement officers in movies are often written to be very stupid, and I just don't know what they were trying to achieve here. And they're only going to get the extra half a nail since they were most likely following orders, no matter how stupid that happened to be. In retaliation for the SWAT officers, John goes to use some of the explosives he got off of Hans's crew. He's plugging in some wires to the C4, but really doesn't know what he's doing. So he grabs a computer monitor, places it on top of the C4, wrapping it all in a chair, props open the elevator shaft, and right before James and Alexander can load another round to the RPG, John pushes the chair down the shaft, and once it reaches the floor the dew is on, it erupts in a giant explosion, killing both men. They died at the same time. I'm going to give them both 2 nails in a coffin. They were henchmen for Hans, and at this time they were focused on taking out the SWAT officers. Hans knew someone else was in the building, but it was only one man, and he wasn't really too concerned at the moment. And these two guys pretty much never knew what hit them, nor would they think they would expect something like this to happen. I mean, yeah, they were bad guys, but I didn't see them do anything inherently stupid that aided in their demise here. So I'm going to give them both 2 nails in a coffin, since they had no idea what happened till it was too late. Next up is Holly's co-worker, Harry Ellis. He says he negotiates $1 million deals for breakfast so he can handle these guys. He talks to Hans's crew and gets a one-on-one conversation with him. Harry's a slimy smooth talker who thinks he can talk his way out of anything. So he tells Hans who John is, making him a story how they're old friends. Harry gets on the radio trying to convince John to surrender the detonators before anybody else gets hurt. He really thinks Hans won't hurt or kill him. So John refuses to do this, telling Harry to stop the charade that's only going to get people killed and him. Of course, Harry doesn't listen. He's going on, but when Hans sees that John won't turn over what he needs, he shoots Harry, killing him. This was an easy one to rate. Good old Harry gets 1 nail in the coffin. This was one of the dumbest things he could have done. I mean, if he tackled a terrorist and tried to take the guy's gun and was killed, I would have said that was smarter than the shit he just pulled right here. It's hard to believe that he thought this would work. I mean, he was an idiot. He was having some nose candy earlier in Holly's office, but I guess he thought this would actually work. Another case where a person's ego was their biggest enemy. So other than Mr. Takagi, he was the only other partygoer that was actually killed. Everyone else made it out alive, and Harry could have been one of those people. But his ego and his stupidity resulted in his death and his one nail in the coffin. While checking on the explosives on the roof, Hans runs into John. Hans pretends to be one of the hostages that actually got away, and he thinks his ruse is working. John even hands him his 9mm for Hans to use just in case. Then Hans to shoot John, but...
Oops. No bullets.
John knew all along, but right after he tells this to Hans, Fritz, Franco, and Carl show up. Carl was first out of the elevator, and he immediately takes cover when he sees John. Fritz wasn't so lucky, and as soon as he steps out of the elevator, he's shot in the chest and killed by John. I'm going to award Fritz 1.5 nails in a coffin. I was close to 2 nails, but since he didn't have much of an opportunity, Carl did show it was possibly to get out of the way and avoid the gunfire from John. Not that it would have been easy, but there was a slight chance he could have done something. I think if you're part of a team like this and you know there's a threat to your mission out there, you should have your head on the swivel, always, checking everything, not really being lackadaisical. So based on all that, I'm going to take some points away and give him 1.5 nails in the coffin. John's outmanned and outgunned, so he takes off running looking for cover. And then he dives behind some stuff. He's down on the ground and Franco is running at him. John fires his gun, shooting Franco multiple times in the leg, causing him to fall to the ground with his head crashing through a window. Franco earned himself 1 nail in the coffin for pretty much running right into gunfire. Carl was taking cover and firing from that position, and I have no idea where Franco was running to or what his plan was. He put himself right out in the opening, allowing Mr. Cowboy to pretty much kill him with ease. Currently, the hostages are on the roof of Nakatomi Plaza. The plan is for Hans's group to blow the roof to cover up for their theft of the bearer bonds and aid in their escape. Henchman Uli runs downstairs to check on the door, and when he opens it, there's John blowing him away. Our candy bar-loving henchman earned himself 2 nails in a coffin. As soon as he opened the door, he was shot dead, so he didn't much have any time to react. Even he opened the door with his weapon drawn, he was dead no matter what. He was told by Hans to get the hostages up to the roof, and time was of the essence. Plus, the roof was about to blow, so he probably wanted to get the hell off the roof ASAP. And I didn't see him make any stupid decisions here, technically. And he was dead before he knew, so the best he's going to get right now is 2 nails in the coffin. John goes up to the roof, and he gets all the hostages to get down by shooting his machine gun in the air. Meanwhile, the FBI, agents Johnson and Johnson, no relation, are up in a helicopter with 4 of its crew members. They shoot at John thinking he's one of the terrorists, and John knows the roof is about to blow, so he ties a fire hose around his waist and he jumps off the roof in an iconic scene. Right as he does this, the roof explodes and the blast catches the helicopter, causing it to explode, killing all the men on board. All 6 men on board the helicopter were killed, and I'm going to award all of them 2 nails in a coffin apiece. The 2 FBI agents were doing what they thought was the best response to the terrorist threat, even if they were following the play-by-play book approach to the situation, which is something that really does happen in military times, so I can imagine there would be similarities with the FBI. They saw machine gun fire on the roof, and they reacted as I would expect them to, as I would do. They wouldn't have known that was John McClane trying to get people off the roof, and they had no idea it was about to explode. The 4 crew members were even more innocent than the 2 agents, since no one did any blatantly stupid mistakes, and they were all pretty much in the wrong place at the wrong time, so I feel like 2 nails in a coffin is fair for all of them. We're at the climax of the movie, and a few more kills to go, and they're the best ones yet. Hans is up on the 30th floor with John's wife, Holly, and one of his last henchmen, Eddie. Hans has Holly at gunpoint with John slowly approaching. John drops his machine gun, he was out of rounds anyways, and he has his hands over his head. But what Hans and Eddie don't see is John's Beretta taped to his back with Christmas tape, proving this is a Christmas movie. Hans asks John, "What was that you said to me?" And Hans repeats the famous line, "Yippee-ki-yay, mother." And Hans and Eddie laugh, and so does John. Before Hans can shoot John, John grabs his weapon, shoots Hans in the chest, and then he shoots Eddie in the head, killing him in one fluid motion. Discount Huey Lewis earned himself 1 nail in a coffin. That's because he was laxed. He went to grab the gun by him to shoot John, but Hans told him to stop, that he wanted to kill John. But Eddie still could have picked up the weapon, if anything, just to cover John. So if John tried anything, Eddie can shoot him. But he was busy laughing at when Hans said, "Yippee-ki-yay, mother trucker." And this is just another case of the villains thinking they already run when they were prematurely celebrating, which is always a bad thing when you prematurely... You know what, never mind. He did have some time to react since once he saw John make a move, but it was too late, so I'm going to give him 1 nail in the coffin. John had hit Hans in the shoulder right before he killed Eddie. Holly tried to get away from him, but he grabs her as he breaks through the window and falls out, holding on to Holly's arm. He's pulling her out with him until John runs over to go help out his wife. Hans is holding on to Holly's wrist, and John is trying to get the watch off of it so Hans will fall. He's holding on with one arm, and he still has his gun, so he slowly pulls it up and points it at the couple. He's too late as John gets Holly's watch off, and he drops Hans up the 30th floor of Nakatomi Plaza, officially starting Christmas. One of the best deaths in any action movie, executed so well. Hans Gruber landed with 1 nail in the coffin. He had John right where he wanted him. Holly was held hostage, and John had dropped his gun. He was injured, exhausted, but Hans wanted to get some words in before he killed John for sure. He had the opportunity standing right there in front of him, just like we all see way too often in horror movies. The villain wasting time to gloat instead of just killing the hero. It's exactly what Hans did here, and that's exactly why he's getting 1 nail in the coffin. When first watching this movie, you would assume that this is the end. John and Holly are at a Nakatomi Plaza. John gets to meet the man he was talking to all night, Sergeant Al Powell. When they see each other, they already know who the other person is, and they embrace like they've been friends for years. This reunion is interrupted by Officer Dwayne T. Robinson, who was the first law enforcement officer in charge on the scene. Then, all of a sudden, Carl appears out of nowhere and points his gun at the couple. John takes cover protecting his wife. Then, Sergeant Al Powell takes aim and blows the terrorist away. The final set of nails for the best Christmas movie ever, Die Hard, go to Carl, and I'm going to give him a gift of 3 nails in the coffin. He was the toughest SOB in the movie, and it took a lot to kill him. You know, we thought John beat him half to death and hung him, but he got himself down somehow. Also, early in the film, when Fritz was killed, Carl was the first one out of the elevator, and he was quick to dodge away when he saw John. I feel like he knew he was going to die, but he wanted to go shoot John and Holly to get revenge for everything. He was surrounded by law enforcement, so he would have known he was going to die no matter what. And he was a tough guy to kill, and throughout the movie, he really didn't make any rash, stupid decisions. So, he does get 3 nails in a coffin as a gift. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all my nails in a coffin for Die Hard. Here's a summary of all the nails I've awarded. And the average nails in a coffin for Die Hard is 1.76 nails, which makes sense, and it's probably a little high for an action movie, but it definitely falls right into place for my series. Next week, I'm covering a pretty good New Year's Eve movie, Terror Train, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and David Copperfield. So, I'll see you here next week. Till then, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, God bless. Take care, stay safe, be good to each other. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and remember, with great kills, there must also come great nails.